Hello, I'd like to welcome you to Hoosier Outdoors with John Martino and friends. You can follow my work on the Kokomo Tribune, wildindiana.com, AP 103 Productions, and AP 103 YouTube TV. We'd like to welcome you to the show, and the first few shows we're going to focus on getting children involved in the great outdoors. There's been a medical term that has been coined over the last few years, and it's called nature deficit disorder. They are actually finding out that kids who spend too much time behind electronic gadgets such as computer screens, cell phones, and even TV are missing out on some of life's greatest experiences. They're losing out on developing an imagination, whether it's playing in a creek or building a fort in the woods. Kids need to be involved. They need some unstructured time where they could let their creative juices do whatever they want in our natural resources. We'd like to welcome you to the show. Our first show, we're going to talk about getting kids the correct bow or firearm. We're going to rely on industry experts, and the first show will be taken at Robbie's Bullseye Outdoors. The owner of the store, Robbie Honert, is a very avid fisherman. He's a professional angler, to be exact, as well as a professional firearms instructor. We're going to talk to him on some of the things parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, or even family friends should look at when getting a child his first bow or firearm. So again, we'd like to welcome you to Hoosier Outdoors with John Martino and friends in conjunction with AP 103 Productions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Hello, I'd like to welcome you to Hoosier Outdoors with John Martino and friends in conjunction with AP 103 Productions. Today we're here with my good friend Robbie Honert of Robbie's Bullseye Outdoors in Kokomo, Indiana.
Hi, I'm Robbie Honert from Robbie's Bullseye Outdoors. I've owned this place since 2006, but I've been coming here since 1992. Started out selling boats, graduated into selling firearms for the guy that owned it before, and then eventually bought out and started my own. Been around firearms since I was a young boy. Dad started me out rabbit hunting and fishing and just generally outdoor person. I would say I didn't get a handgun until I was in my 30s. It was basically just rabbit hunting and shotguns and rifles and just general shooting.
What we're going to talk about on this segment is, Robbie, what age do you think children should be introduced to firearms?
Well, John, it depends a lot on the kid's level of maturity and responsibility. Obviously, growing up in a rural area, not big city, we're introduced to our guns a lot earlier than some of the other kids. I remember when I was a kid, I was rabbit hunting at 8, 9, 10 years old,
right,
with my dad, and the inner city kids just don't see that. So, if the kid's responsible and he's mature enough and he's got a good support group behind him, a parent or somebody that's teaching him along the way. 7, 8, 9 years old. I mean, we've got guns that start out kids when they're little bitty, when their length of pull is real small and real short, real lightweight, and then you graduate them up to there. But my dad started me when I was about 10 with a 20 gauge single barrel break open shotgun, something like that. Real simple, real easy. The main thing you don't want to do, I think, is, for one, scare the kid, give them the old hand-me-down 12-gauge single barrel,
right,
kick them on their butt,
right,
and then they're not having any fun with it at all. So I would say a small gauge, depending on what you're doing, whether you're rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, a 22, a 410, 20 gauge, something like that.
That's a good point. Some kids, 8 or 9, they may be ready to start becoming familiar with firearm. Other kids, it may be 12 or 13 or 14.
Or 18.
Or 18. No, you're right. Now, another question, and I want to see how you feel about this. you read any paper in the United States, and it's unfortunate, but we see these firearm accidents. Don't you think that for children, one of the best things is to remove their curiosity? Children are naturally curious, and you know as well as I do, a lot of us keep firearms in our house, and you can't hide anything from kids. I know what I did with my own kids when they were very young. I started them out with a .22, and I removed all that curiosity. We shot at a very young age, and now, I mean, even as you just remove that curiosity. Do you think that's a good thing? Get them started early? And
it is. It really is. And what I do is all my guns are in a safe. They're locked up in a safe, other than my home defense gun. As a little kid, they didn't know where that was anyway. They couldn't have found it. But as I'm playing around with my guns and I open my safe, I welcome the kids over.
Right.
And I make sure that they're unloaded, and hand them to them, let them look at them and play with them a little bit, and that does take curiosity away from them going out and looking around for them. And
what calibers? If somebody was going to get a child their first gun, what are several of the calibers that you would recommend?
I would say, depending on what they're doing, either .22 rifle in a single shot, or something maybe in a lever gun, something that slows the kid down a little bit. The semi-autos I'm not real fond of as being a first gun. 410 shotgun and a 20 gauge. Those are the three that I really like.
And the reason you said a lever gun or a bolt action or a break open, as opposed to a semi-automatic, because for them to put another round in battery, it takes cognitive thought and time and action.
That's right.
Where with semi-automatic, I mean, you just pull the trigger.
Keep pulling the trigger, right.
So, well, very good. And with the 22 and the 20 gauge and the 410 in Indiana, you can probably hunt almost everything with those three guns.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, and then as far as safety, how do you think a child should be brought into firearms safety? Is that something you think the parents should start? Should they go to classes? Should they do both?
Well, I think if they've got a parent that's into guns and can teach that, that's great. If not, if they're in like a 4-H group or some of these other little shooting sport groups,
right,
that's good. But the thing that I would stress is if a kid's got an interest in firearms and he's wanting to pursue it, the parent, if he doesn't know, he needs to get him to somebody that does know and get him brought up exactly right.
And in most communities, and Kokomo is no different, we have avenues where kids can learn proper firearm safety, because you mentioned the 4-H. Almost every county has a 4-H shooting sport.
Right.
And that'd be a great thing to get the kids in as well.
Yeah, some of the Boy Scouts have got shooting sports groups. That's all they do is shooting sports.
I've always been a proponent of getting children involved in the safe handling of firearms at an early age, because don't you think that helps a child to develop respect, safety, responsibility. So owning a firearm, even as a child, I think benefits the child for the rest of their life by helping provide them with positive attributes. Do you agree with that?
Yes, and responsibility is a big thing. Yeah, we live in a different world today than we did when we were growing up. When we were growing up, we'd run our traps in the morning before school. We'd go hunting in the afternoon after school. We'd take our rifle and our shotgun in our pickup truck to school on our rifle rack.
Right.
They break in the truck. They don't steal your gun. They take your 8-track.
Right.
So it's just a different world. But yeah, you're right. It does bring their level of responsibility up a little bit, because it's a firearm.
Right. So for parents out there, if you have a child that has an interest in the outdoors, or even if he doesn't, I think it benefits and to get them involved in the safe handling of firearms. It's just like hunter education. Hunter education classes go through all types of firearms, and of course all types of hunting scenarios as well. The hunter's education to me is so important that I think it should be taught in every school, mainly because of the firearm safety. And they go into handguns, black powder guns, modern sporting arms. But the thing is, too, get them involved in these classes, because even if the child does not have an interest in the outdoors, maybe he will after he attends some of these classes. And the more you get involved with the outdoors, I think the more it'll enrich your life.
I agree, 100%. And when I was in school, we did have the DNR officers
Right.
come to our school, and we did a hunter education course when we were done,
Right.
and when we was in school. And then brought up into the scouting program, I had it all the way till I was, young.
Robbie, a child, if they want to get into archery, how do you think they should start? What are some of the things they should pay attention to when getting started in archery sports?
Well, again, it depends on the kid. How physically strong they are, and I would start out a kid just in something in a small recurve. If they're small, with just a hay bale in the backyard, just something to get them into the motion of shooting archery. No sights, no releases, no fancy stuff. Just get them into the motion of shooting, like a little recurve or even the little fiberglass bows. I'm talking somebody that's 5, 6, 7 years
Right.
old. Eventually they'll graduate out of that and get up into something a little more powerful.
Like some of the compound models.
Yeah, especially if they're wanting to hunt with dad. They've got these bows now that are compound bows that are real easily adjusted to length of draw, and it's a bow that will grow with the kid, say from 10 years old all the way up to an adult. I mean, you can change the poundage on these all the way down from like 18, 19, 20 pounds all the way up to 65 and 70 pounds. So it's a bow that can grow with the person, and that's what I would suggest. Instead of buying something that is, it used to be you would buy one bow here and then they would grow out of it, and then you buy another bow,
Right.
then they grow out of it, and
Right.
then you buy another bow as they're an adult. You'd buy 3 or 4 bows. But some of the bows now, you can change them without a press. You can do it all at home. The adjustment on the length of draw and the poundage.
And if somebody would purchase a bow like this for their child here, you can show them how to do all that.
Yeah.
And then another thing, don't you think as a child grows, bows actually, especially when you get into the compounds, they should actually be fitted to each individual, kind of like when you go buy a pair of shoes.
Very important. Yeah, very important. If it's not, you won't shoot well, and you develop bad habits. It just won't be a very fun thing. It's always funner if you're hitting what you're aiming at.
And if it doesn't fit the child right, just like you said, they may not shoot it very well, or it isn't comfortable when they pull it back. And if a child doesn't enjoy what they're doing, then they pretty much give it up.
Yeah.
Don't you think? So
That's
you got to
exactly
pay attention to, make sure the bow fits the child.
That's right.
And you offer all this stuff here. You can explain everything to the child and parent. And archery is a great sport. They're even teaching that in a lot of schools now.
Yeah, we have it all the time where a guy brings his kid in, and he might be 10 years old, and he's got his old bow, and he said, "Here, make that work for my son." Can't do it. The draw length is set to a 30-inch draw or a 29-inch draw, and the kid's got a 22-inch draw. Won't work. It's not feasible for that boy.
And in closing, Robbie, I do have to thank you because you are very actively involved in youth hunting and fishing activities in Kokomo, Indiana. And for that, thank you for your involvement.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Again, I'm John Martino with Hoosier Outdoors with John Martino and friends, and my good friend Robbie Honor. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.